Welcome to Bite Size Dental Marketing. It's the read of the week on
Oh
June
yeah.
23rd. I thought you were going to do the what's up, Kristen.
What? Me?
What's
What's
up?
What's
up?
What's
up?
up?
So every other week and this is the Friday, we do a book club. If any of our listeners want to join us, shoot me an email and I'll send you the link to join. We're currently reviewing the Netflix No Rules Rules with Reed Hastings and Aaron Meyer. I think we're on chapter 7, which I think that might be my read of the week, guys. I did not do much more reading. Um, Sorry, what do you, why don't you kick us off on a roundtable of what are you reading?
Yeah, let's do it. So, my read of the week is this article that I came across on LinkedIn. It was posted by Ted Rubin. He is a co-author of a book and several other books, and he writes about return on relationship and basically being empathetic and compassionate to other human beings. And this article in particular, the title is Brand Kindness: Build Your Brand Reputation with Empathy and Compassion. So when I read this article, really the first thing I thought of is our book club and our culture and our company, because what it is about is it's basically saying that, do you understand the importance or the value in building your brand reputation that's based on empathy and compassion, which is just infinitely more powerful and memorable. Because I think we've mentioned this before in one of our last read of the weeks. People don't remember what you said or what words you used, but they do remember what you made them feel. And
Hmm.
what better place to start than your own workplace and your staff members and your employees to start building that compassion and empathy. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be little gestures or little moments of kindness. And something that it talks about is a couple of different examples of doing that and incorporating brand kindness into your brand is just little things. Number one is just encouraging an environment where everybody is encouraged to do these little acts of kindness and show empathy and be compassionate. And it talks about how managers should exemplify that by doing, so that the other people in the company feel encouraged to do so. And I feel like that is so, it resonates a lot with our own company culture. We have a culture of being kind, and a lot of these things, by the way, the ways of incorporating brand kindness is part of our culture document, and parts of it is part of our culture document, and that is something that stood out to me. Another one is listen. Just one act of kindness towards some human being is just to listen to them and be empathetic. And we have one-on-ones with our bosses, and we have internal one-on-ones, and we just take the time to listen to each other, how their day is going, how they're doing in general. And that's part of showing compassion and kindness to somebody. Another one is rewarding kindness. Kindness that gets rewarded in a workplace, again, goes back into encouraging kindness and building that culture of this is who we are. And we have surprise and delight as part of our culture, and we get rewarded for that. We talk about it. Whoever does things for our clients, which is to delight them and to be kind to them, is always rewarded. And just to keep it simple. Sometimes big gestures are amazing, but it does not have to be big. It can be just something really simple. And well, the conclusion is basically that by doing so, you're not building just a brand, you're being a trusted advisor to somebody. And anybody that you service are now going to be part of your kindness circle, basically, and they trust you, which is so much different than just saying, this is my brand, this is the quality of my work. You're saying, these are the kind of people we are. And
Hmm.
one quote I want to end with is that indifference is expensive, hostility is unaffordable, trust is priceless. That's all. It's all about relationships. So I thought it was a really nice piece of article, and I wanted to share.
Can you read that quote for me one more time?
Yep. Indifference is expensive, Hostility is unaffordable. Trust is priceless. It's all about relationships.
Mm, that's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
I I like it. I do tend to, I think if I just think about how I view people, people that I trust, I naturally believe that they're going to do a good job, or maybe because I trust them, they do a good job. Maybe they do a good job, but that's why I trust them. But there's a direct correlation, and probably correlation and causation between people I trust and people who I perceive to do a good job. I don't know which it is, but it's definitely one of them.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a good. What's the headline of the article again? Sorry.
It's called Brand Kindness. Build your brand reputation with empathy and compassion.
That's a
Mm.
good one. That's a good one.
And
Well,
I
I
know,
go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead, you.
Sorry.
I was just going to wrap up by saying I know we've read some other marketing books in the company too, like The Experience Maker, something we've talked about, and it is just universal and it's true. People remember how you make them feel, and it's all about relationships.
Hmm. Yeah, I have something a little bit different, but still along the lines of um, more less relationship with others and more the relationship with yourself. My read of the week and something that I started my day with this morning actually was what I do when I feel like giving up. And it's by James Clear. I've actually been following, he has this website essentially with a bunch of articles on from everything from motivation to productivity to um, wisdom and improving on your emotions with people, all, whole bunch of categories. And the one today is under the motivation category. And as I said, it's mentioned, it's named What I Do When I Feel Like Giving Up. And this really spoke to me. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the table because I think we can all relate. Being a human is a difficult task. Very often we don't give ourselves enough credit to understand that everybody is going through struggles, everybody's having a difficult time, and especially the battle that we have within our own minds is probably one of the biggest battles that we have, and that's what this covers. So I'll grab some snippets here just to give you guys an idea, and then I definitely encourage those who do feel like giving up today just to go and take a peek at this. So he starts out, just today I feel like giving up, and he goes, well, today I'm struggling. Today I don't feel like writing. Today I don't feel like sticking to my routine. I don't feel like I'll have any great ideas. I don't feel like I have enough time to even put my ideas to work. Today I really just feel like giving up. And that's just the introduction. That really spoke to me because I think sometimes we really do just wake up and it just doesn't feel like a good day. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a good day. And how he counters that is the next paragraph or the next section is about your mind is a suggestion engine. And it's so important to remember that. Consider every thought that you have as a suggestion, it's not an order. Right now, my mind might be suggesting that I feel tired, that I want to give up, and that I want to take the easier path. But if we pause for a moment and we discover new suggestions when we feel those giving up ones, then my mind is also suggesting that I will feel very good about the things that I can accomplish today. And it's suggesting that I will respect the identity that I'm building for myself if I stick to my schedule that I know is healthy for me. And if I finish this task, I know it will make me feel better. And that kind of spills over into his next section he goes into, which is discomfort is temporary. And this really hit hard for me because when I think back to doing my thesis or any test I ever did or a paper that I wrote, that discomfort of sitting there and you're on page one and you're starting. And I know, Saurya, you also just did a bunch of studying and you had to write tests and stuff. I'm sure when you sit down there initially you go, how am I here again? This is terrible. And then you get to the end of this 120-page thesis and it's good and it's finished and you're happy with your work, and that that is what you should remember when embarking on anything, that discomfort is temporary and that we should seek discomfort. um, the next section is just goes into you will never regret good work once it's done. And I think that's once you've seeked discomfort and you get through it, we can all acknowledge the fact that when we are done with a good project, whether it's editing a massive video or doing a song or working on a podcast or starting a new project, when you look back, you're always happier that you did embark on it and that you gave it your all. And then the last, he finishes up that this is life. There's this constant battle between discomfort and success and seeking others' approval and approving of ourselves and what we do. And he ends off just by saying, all you can do is do your best, make sure that you give your all, and then let the world decide. And that's it. So
Yeah,
I really like that.
that's good. I follow this guy, Jordan Peterson, and, you know, not all of his things are home runs, but he talked one time about the pursuit of happiness is actually not a great goal, that it's just too simplistic, and happiness will come and go, and that you should live your life. And this is what kind of a line in the this thing he coined, the rule of thirds. So a third of the time you should be really happy. A third of the time you should be okay. And a third of the time you should really be uncomfortable for some reason. And if you find that any one of those are out of alignment, you're probably not either working hard enough to be, a better person, or growing enough, or so, you're too comfortable, or you've put yourself in positions via your actions that require, remediation. And it kind of aligned that you should strive to do the hard things today because they'll prepare you for the harder things that'll come tomorrow. And he talked about things like, over your life, you're going to have a death. Someone is going to get sick. You are going to go through challenging times. And if you constantly avoid the work, when those happen, you will be ill-equipped to deal with them. And as you were talking through your read, it took me to that talk he did.
Hmm.
That's,
That's.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that reminded me of the study they did on plants where they tested how a plant grew under, normal weather conditions with wind, rain, all these things. And then they had one that was completely sheltered, like in a greenhouse. And as the two plants grew, they're the same plant. One plant, was weaker, and then one plant was a lot stronger and more hardy because it had been against those elements. It had been uncomfortable as it grew. And so the roots grew deeper to manage the wind and the rain, all these things. And while the other one stayed shallow and it was easily, removed from the soil. And I think that's something that translates into people that, whenever we're put under these hardened conditions, it forces us to build ourselves up to face those in the future.
So true.
Yeah,
and
there's
a quote here that stood out to me that plays on both what Eric, what you and Kristen were saying now, and it's actually from Theodore Roosevelt that he mentioned here. He said, Theodore Roosevelt famously said, "Far and away the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at work worth doing."
Yep. Good one.
It's so much more rewarding than being comfortable because
Exactly.
after a while it becomes boring. I mean, what are you going to do if you're just doing this, like lounging on the couch every single day? Even for me on the weekends, after one day of just doing nothing, I feel lazy. I feel unproductive. It makes me feel actually negative instead of refreshed.
Yeah. Getting through something hard is definitely you're passing a milestone. It's an achievement. You're building that onto your portfolio, so to speak. But another aspect of that too is, as humans, I think, Ian, when you started, you mentioned something about what we think and how that manifests, or our minds are so powerful. Something I've personally noticed I do is when I'm going through something uncomfortable or a discomfort, it's not the uncomfortable situation that is blocking me more so. It's my mind itself. I am blocking myself because I am thinking of this uncomfortable situation as this huge mountain to climb. But when you get past it, you realize, that was mostly me. I was my blocker, not the situation.
The mind really is a powerful thing. It's funny because that's something that stuck out to me when we were reading chapter 7 of the Netflix book, and it's called The Keeper Test, where people were having to basically constantly work for their job. Nobody was safe. It's not like once you had your job, you're tenured and you're good. And they spoke about how it created fear in people, that they were like, oh man, am I next? Am I going to be fired? I see all my colleagues getting fired. And every day they would go to work with this huge anxiety, and they would focus on not getting fired instead of working to be the person that wouldn't get fired. And that's something that I think about all the time, whenever, even every day when I wake up. If I do these like positive affirmations about myself, if I'm saying I'm strong, I'm brave, I'm courageous, I'm smart, versus focusing on the anxiety of the morning or something bad, and I let that ruminate, it directly affects how my day goes.
I think they train pilots to not look at where to avoid. I think they train pilots to look at where they want to land. I think my read of the week is the same, Kristen. I think it's I think he mentions whitewater rafting in the chapter. Like, you need to look at the clear water next to the rapids, not at the rapids. I think that's so true. I know that when I encounter challenges with employees, or when I encounter challenges with clients, and I focus on the negative, I will effectively manifest it happening. Where if I'm like, how can I go have a hard conversation and come out with a positive outcome versus going and dreading it? I personally go in, I think, with less weight, and I think people sense that, and they begin to respond. But yeah, I think that so much of our life is manifested destiny. Of we focus on these negative things, and they end up manifesting, and we're like, I knew it. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you've been throwing out to the universe for the past week. Of course it happened. But for me, along the same lines is, we've gone through a similar journey in chapter 7 of when we started, and I still, Simon Sinek talks about lifetime employment, and I love the concept of that. And as we got into the company and became, 3 years and 5 years and 7 and old in our company, I felt there were people who didn't keep up their end of the bargain. And I didn't know what to do, because part of my identity was this lifetime employment. And it was nice to read about Netflix going through a similar event, to where they wanted to all be family. And then at some point they realized they were a sports team, and that, there's an obligation to put the best player you can put in the position of the team. And I did like also how they broke down that it's not a competition. There's, it's not like they only have 11 players. They can have as many players as they want. And in fact, if they were all at a high level, they can have, any number. And that was very different than the GE, the Jack Welch, and, Microsoft of, you had to force rank your employees and fire the bottom 20% or whatever it was, which those things worked. But as soon as the cultural titans that implemented them went away, they began to get ugly and be used against the other employees and companies. But it really resonated with me, because I think I've told all of you, I think of us as a crew team, almost going on a long distance row. And at some point, I think when the water's clear and things are good, I think it's okay that, 8 of 12 people are rowing really hard. But I think when waters get rough, you need to have blisters, or you need to have calluses. And if you don't, I think the organization if you don't have blisters or calluses during rough waters, I think the organization has an obligation to have a real serious chat about what you're doing on the boat, because you're just weighing us down. And that resonates with me a lot. But I do agree, and I like what you said about focusing on the positives. And I think you should walk up and be like, do you see my blisters? No? Well, then, and then have a conversation. If I have them or I don't have them, maybe you have them and I just can't see them. But I think that requires a level of confidence that is interesting.
Yeah. I do like that it talks about, the chapter mentions it's not just about because this certain person is not unlocking their full potential in this particular role doesn't mean that they don't have a space in the team. Maybe they need to go to a different role or go back to what they were doing because they were succeeding there. So having that self-awareness to say, maybe this role is not where I can thrive, but I could be contributing somewhere else. That's still a possibility.
Sorry,
Well,
if I gave you if I handed in my resignation, would you fight to keep me?
Yes, I would, because without you, none of us would be here.
Well, let's wrap it up. Ian, any
Awesome.
final thoughts?
it's always good to be here. I look forward to the next read of the week. Thank you for having us.
That was your read of the week?